The next part of my podcast is about the process of backing up. This is where copies of data called backups are made so that the original file can be gained back after a data loss event, whether it be a power cut, computer crash or virus infection. Backups are useful for two purposes: to restore a state after a disaster, this is called disaster recovery, and to store small numbers of files after they have been accidentally deleted or corrupted in some way. There are a wealth of ways in which data can be backed up effectively. These are magnetic tape, hard drives, optical discs, i.e. CD, DVD or Blu-ray discs, solid state storage, for example USB flash drives, SD cards etc, and remote backup service, where you have another network in a remote location. So those are the ways in which you can store data, but how do you actually go about selecting and extracting the data? The simplest and most basic way of doing this is copying the files from one medium to another. However, instead of copying entire files, you can also copy only a small number of blocks or bytes within a file that have changed. This potentially saves space on the storage medium, but it is more sophisticated as you have to reconstruct files to a restorable state. Therefore, another method that could be used is a raw partition backup. This works in a similar way to disk imaging and involves copying the whole file system instead of individual files. This tends to work faster than a simple file copying procedure and has the advantage that you can restore specific files from the dump image. Some backup software, Windows Explorer being one, has a date and time feature which shows exactly when a file has been modified. This way, you can easily compare the date of the original file to the last backup to determine whether or not the file has been changed. This is called simply identification of changes. Finally, a versioning file system keeps track of all the changes that have been made to a file and makes them accessible to the user. Therefore, the user has access to any previous version right back to the file's creation time. An example of this is Linux's way-back versioning file system. Now you have backed up your files, it's now time to manipulate the data to complete the backup process. There are several ways in which this can be done. One of them is compression. The most common way of doing this is by using the Windows formats WinRAR and WinZip. These are rather like bookbinders, as implied by the WinRAR logo. They store all the books of the same topic in one stack so that they can be kept together without getting displaced. There is also deduplication, which removes any unnecessary copies of files before data is copied onto a storage medium, saving storage medium space as well as bandwidth. Sometimes the opposite process, duplication, can be carried out to save the backups at another location, so there is a second copy of all the data on another storage medium or in a separate location. Another method which is used is encryption. This is where the data is electronically distorted to prevent hackers or spyware from accessing the contents of files. Some backup software has a built-in encryption tool, for example Windows Explorer and Windows Vista, but this often causes more problems than it solves. It is very burdensome on the CPU and can thus slow down backup speeds. Once encrypted, it cannot be compressed, and the degree of security of the encrypted backups is only as effective as the management of the data. Finally, staging is sometimes used on network-based backup systems, such as file sharing networks, as there is often a problem in matching the speed of the destination device with the source device. It can also act as a base for all the other manipulation techniques. Well, there they are, all the various ways in which you can back up and manipulate your data to prevent it from getting lost under any circumstances. Remember this golden rule: as soon as you've finished working on any file, whether it be a homework essay, cash flow forecast or even a letter, be sure to back it up by any of those methods. Backing up is your insurance against disaster, so please use it to your advantage.